Welcome again. This is Stephen Wilson. I am a libertarian running for Congress in the Missouri 3rd District 2012, and this video is going to address some of the questions about the federal budget mandates and about the way we could actually secure the budget and dealing with the politician that doesn't have any self-control. To begin with, this video is going to be dealing with the way that we go through political banking, the selling of votes, political rent sinking, notes payable, the American voter being duped into the idea that debt is wealth, and addressing the macroeconomic understanding that credit markets are counterfeit. We're also going to be dealing with the Genesis primer that the government can't spend what the citizen cannot afford right now, or the present value of the market. The mandate is going to be set forth by the following construct. We're going to be using the formula based on anchors of the median household income and total population. We're also going to be talking about the taxable revenue being allocated per the payer. That means that the payer can actually tell the government where their revenue will be going. We also have to acknowledge a food chain. We've got to deal with a vertical system. Either the state or the federal need to be on top of each other. Them being eye to eye is irrational. And finally, we need to set some criteria to where these mandates can be fractured. And here, just as a quick example, we identify them as the budget can be altered, or these mandates can be removed in times of invasion, famine, or disease. Let us now start dealing with a real-time example, and we're going to begin by identifying a multiplier. We're going to take 1% and 3% and 5% of the median household income throughout the entire nation, and we're going to deal with the approximate total population. For the sake of this game, we will identify the purpose. What is the budget maximum for the year 2013? And here we will identify the median household income in 2012 as $49,400. The approximate population in 2012 was 350 million. And we start to go through our formulations, and rather quickly, as you can see, these are quite simple. If we take 1% of 49,400, we get 494. And we take the $494 per citizen, and we multiply that times the aggregate population that is approximate at the time, and we see that the budget maximum is $172,900,000,000. If we took the 3%, we would come up with $1,482, and we would multiply the 1,482 to the 350 million, and we would arrive at 518,700,000,000. And if we took the 5%, we would come to 2,470. We took the 2,470 multiplied to 350 million. We would arrive at $864,500,000,000. This is just a percentile of what it would, the amounts would be the total amount of expenditure, and the federal government could not go beyond this cap. Now we're going to be dealing with the sample sheet for the tax allocation, and here we need to acknowledge that obviously the only people that could do this would be the taxpayer. Under no conditions would the non-taxpayer have access to the allocation sheet. This is just a real quick example of what you would have to do, whether or not the vertical was the state or the federal. You would have to do this in front of your county, or you would have to do it at the Capitol. But here the sheet just identifies, just a real quick disclaimer, I am a taxpayer for the year 2013, and I want my funding to be spent in the following manner. I am aware it must equal 100% of my total tax bill. And then you identify your total taxes paid. This individual would pay $18,650, and this individual identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this particular game, and broke it down to National Guard 30% assistance, which would be things like housing or food or Medicaid, another 30%, public schools, private schools, homeschool. This would be broken into the 20%, and the utilities would be things like roads, electricity, and this would be a 20%. And what you would do is, once you broke down the sheet and you blocked and you quartiled everything, the amount would have to equal your total tax bill. So if you were to take these four amounts, then they would total the $18,650. Now, two things need to be acknowledged. Number one, here you have the ability to fill in other. This needs to be confirmed by a judge and the county tax collector, or it has to be dealt with by someone in the federal government. You can't just put in other and then put all your money in there. The money has to be paid in, and it can only be accepted if it is going into an acceptable origin of need, which would be what the county or the federal would ascertain, and then you would be able to get to pick from them. The second thing that needs to be acknowledged about the sheet is that the taxpayer needs to sign it, and a federal or a local judge needs to be able to proof it, because here this is going to be a means of just getting rid of the ability to declare innocence before being able to be proven guilty. This would be almost a removal of the Fifth Amendment. If you're going to pay your taxes, you're going to acknowledge that you're going to do it. The judge will be there, and this will alleviate many of the legal problems and a lot of the production cost in our legal system in regards to tax fraud, and whether it's for the county or the federal. And now we're going to deal with the final screen for this video, and this is going to be something that I'm going to be dealing with, wherein many of you contacted me and had comments about what it is to have people in office that don't have any integrity, they don't have any discipline, they don't have any self-control. And here we just have to build a Skinner box that is going to keep these people in check, and really, again, try to apply the science of understanding the Genesis Primer, that the government, although an abstraction, it cannot spend what the citizen cannot afford. And this is just again a legal form, somewhat of the economic counterpart to the sheet that was in the allocation sheet, because here we'll just go through the language game. We, the elected members of the United States of Congress, and here you could put their name down if they had to, do acknowledge that for the year 2013, the government budget maximum allocated by the taxpayers will be set at $172,900,000,000. Under no condition shall I allocate expenditures beyond this amount unless the United States of America declares war upon invasion, declares emergency under famine, or declares emergency under disease. Here you have a place for the public servant to sign in the presence of a judge. This judge would have to be state or federal. And in the contract, you actually have, again, the allocation that has been blocked and quartiled per what it is that the government should be spending. And again, I'm not going to address it. These are just used as fillers, the ability to go through the game and understand some kind of construct. Again, the criteria for the famine and disease could be changed out. That again is just an example of what kind of criteria you would need in order to break the mandate, even in the short term. But here, if you did go through it and your public servant, your congressman or congresswoman did deal with the allocated funds, the people would have voted and stated that this is what the government should be paying for. So the National Guard would be 30%, and they would receive 51,870,000,000. The National Guard would be the equivalent of the military, national defense, things like that. Assistance would be things like collectivism, things that we have that are Marxist, things like food stamps, housing, Medicaid, Medicare. That's where that general pool would be out of. Schools, again, would be public and private and homeschool. This money would be given to people that are educating children. And the utilities, again, would be things like electricity, roads, sewer, things like that. One of the things that people are trying to identify as a check and balance, trying to maintain it, because the Democrat and the Republican appear to believe that they are above law. The final part of this is just about signing off and about pulling somebody from their district and getting them to sign the check. And basically, either they sign it or they protest it. The check is going to go out either way, but it's just someone to make sure that the public servant is doing it in front of a witness, just a regular citizen. These individuals are picked at random the same way that you would have jury duty. These individuals are just chosen at random to sign as a witness to declare that the tax is being spent on that particular item, and that's the amount being spent in that year. My final thought on this has been, because the fact that so many people seem to fail miserably at understanding the principles of finance, and really here in Missouri, just the basic principles of arithmetic, trying to get people to build a glass house, I think, should be a no-brainer. But it's something that the voter just doesn't appear to be strong enough to do. And tax model really is something that has to deal with micro and macroeconomics, and it's got to start dealing with production. And it doesn't really matter what tax model you would like to have. Obviously, some people like to have no taxes. But something needs to be done about the way that the Missouri voter keeps being tricked into believing that credit markets are wealth and that debt is wealth. People are going to have to start dealing with production. And taxation doesn't mean anything until you can understand what it is that you're going to be funding. The collection itself should be secondary, and that's something, again, that needs to be addressed. The people here just need to start talking about things they don't understand. And again, for my own personal opinion, the reason that I'm running a solution-based campaign is because, well, quite frankly, that's really all that matters. You have a problem, you need a solution. And discussing the problem at great length doesn't do anybody any good. And in regards to taxation, my solution is quite simple. The government should not be able to spend what the citizen cannot afford. And that really does cut it to the bone. I understand that there's going to be some people that are angry and upset about that, but the short-term and long-term debt load of America could actually remove us from being a world power. My name is Stephen Wilson, and thank you for your time.